Hey, how you doing? Welcome to the channel. Thank you for taking the time. Hope you're having a great day. I'm going to give you my normie thoughts on episode 2 of the Rings of Power, Lord of the Rings show from Amazon. This episode has more definitely to it. There's some plot things that are actually happening. I thought episode 1 was just really boring. I don't know. They were trying to make it seem like some big stuff was happening, but it didn't really land with me. And I don't know. That's just my opinion. These are just my thoughts. But this show really isn't doing much for me so far. So let's get right into this. So we pick up right where we left off with Gelatrial, and she is floating like perfectly in water. She doesn't even look like she's treading. She just looks like she's standing on something. But regardless, she stares blankly at the camera like she always does, and then she swims away. Then we cut over to Screensaver 3, and we see Nori. She's still standing over the crater, looking down at Crater Man. She has a really odd look on her face. It's just really weird. It's kind of her head's all cocked, and she just looks kind of weird. And then Poppy creeps up on her, startles her, and then they sort of start arguing. And there's a little tussle, and then Nori, she falls down into the crater, and the ground that it's all like burning, and it looks like ambers are burning, and she touches one, or she lands on one with her hands, and then she tells us that it's not hot. So I don't know what that was for. So we see fire, but apparently it's not hot. And it's just weird because it reminded me of in episode 1 where Gladriel and her squad, they go into that castle in the mountain, and they're holding torches, and one of her people, they touch the torch isn't putting off heat, I guess, like it's a flame, and he's holding his hand next to it, and he's like, the flame's not warm. And then she makes a stupid ass line about the place is so evil that fire is no longer warm. Like, it's so dumb. And I don't know what they're doing with this type of shit. I don't know what it means, but whatever. Fire doesn't burn, I guess. So then she gets close to him. She does the typical sort of goofy thing where it's cliche where the character touches the face of the person who's passed out, and then she turns her back, and then we get the cliche jump scare. He grabs her by the wrist, except he screams at her, and it causes like a huge gust of wind, and then he touches the ground with his other hand, and then we see some levitating rocks, and then he passes out. And then Nori and Poppy, they have like a little discussion. It's supposed to be comedic, but it just doesn't. The comedy's not landing with me. But they're having a back and forth about whether or not to leave him. Nori wants to save him or take him somewhere, and Poppy's just like, nah, let's just leave this motherfucker, leave him. And then we cut to the village where I think his name's Sadak or Sadak. I'm gonna call him Sadak. He is the Harfoot's leader. He's talking with a couple of women about, I think they're talking about the meteor. And I kept calling it a comet in my last episode. I didn't even realize that I was saying that. It's actually not a comet, it's a meteor, because it breaches the atmosphere and lands, so that makes it a meteor. Regardless, they're talking about moving camp, and then we see Nori and Poppy in the background. They're snagging clothes off of the clotheslines. They grab like a basket of food or whatever. And then we get back to Nori and Poppy, and they have Crater Man in a cart, like a wheelbarrow type thing. And they're wheeling him up a hill, and they're having a back and forth about what to do with him. And then it's, again, more unfunny shit. And as they're talking, Crater Man is unattended, and he rolls back down the hill, and then we see them chasing after him. Next, we see them underneath some brush. They got him covered up now and hiding him. And Nori has this, I don't know, she's talking about how she feels responsible, and this is different, and because Poppy's giving her a hard time, saying you always have to save everything. This is just you being you. And Nori's like, no, it's different. This is so much different. So, and she gets all teary-eyed and asks Poppy for help, and Poppy says, cool, I'll help you. So then we cut back to Arender and Bronwyn on Screensaver 5. They're investigating that burned down village that we saw in the last episode. They find a big hole in the ground, and then he says, Arender says he has to go after whatever's down there, whatever dug it. And then we cut to a new screensaver, actually, screensaver number 6. We see Elrond and Celebrimbor, the famous blacksmith. They're talking about this hammer that he made. I can't remember the name of the place that we're on. Like I said, it really doesn't matter. It's just another pretty place to look at. But it's Celebrimbor's, like where he lives, and they're in his forge, and they're talking about this hammer that he made. Celebrimbor tells Elrond that he wants to build the greatest forge ever, So obviously we're leading up to the forging of the actual rings, the Lord of the Rings, or whatever you call them, the 7 rings or whatever. Like I said, I don't know the lore that well, and I've seen the movies multiple times, Lord of the Rings movies, but forgive me if I don't know like the names of things. As a normie, as advertised. So anyways, Elrond tells Celebrimbor that they need to get some outside help, and he's talking about the dwarves. And then we get the Game of Thrones sort of map. We're overlooking, and we pan over to a new screensaver, another new one, it's screensaver 7. And then we see Elrond talking to Celebrimbor about how the dwarves are going to be so excited to see him. They're going to shower him. It's like really over the top. Like he's really overselling the fact that they're going to be so happy to see him that it was obvious we were heading towards them not giving a shit that he's there. And that's just what happens. It's very predictable. The writing is just not good to me. So then they have so Elrond pounds on the door. They don't care about him. They're like, go away. And then he says some secret clubhouse word or phrase, and that sort of allows him passage to talk to the prince. And then he gets in. And then he leaves Celebrimbor outside. He says, I'll be back in a few days, or come back in a few days, or whatever. So then we cut to inside of screensaver 7, we get screensaver 8, which is the kingdom inside of the mountain, the dwarves kingdom, I guess. I mean, again, and I will say this, I call them screensavers for a reason, because screensavers are typically really pretty and they're cool to look at. That's really what they are. And this is no different. When we see the inside of the mountain, it looks really cool. Like it's neat. It's, you can tell they're really throwing a lot of money at that CGI budget. But he's just walking through, and the music's really powerful, and it's just it's like 2 minutes or a couple of minutes, I don't know how long, but it's just a few minutes of just him just walking through with his mouth open, like he's never seen this place before, and it's just weird, it's like he's acting surprised, like he doesn't know this is how they live. So whatever. All right, then they escort him to this room, and all the dwarves they're chanting and everything, and then Prince Durin is his name. He enters the room and he challenges Elrond to a stone breaking contest. And if Elrond were to lose, then he's banished forever. And if Elrond is to win, then he will speak to him. So, not really bad. It's kind of, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. The acting really isn't that good. But they're really selling like this lighthearted goofiness of it, and it's not landing with me at all. All right, so then we cut back to screensaver 3. We see Craterman. He is now drawing some symbols on a log, and then Nori comes up behind him, and we got to see it again. She startles him, and then he shouts at her, and then all the wind is just like blowing crazy, like hurricane winds. Like the winds are so strong, we see trees bending completely, like big ass trees, bending to almost like parallel to the ground. But Nori's fine. Nori just holds her hand up, and it's just windy. But it's so windy that the trees are like just about to snap in half. She'd be blown away like some leaves, but whatever. They're just trying to make it. They're trying to sell like his power or whatever. And then we get some exposition from Nori, just sort of about the situation. Like he can't talk. He doesn't speak. He makes these really stupid mumbling sounds. Like he talks like a caveman. Like it's just weird. He's powerful, but why can't he speak? They went a really weird route with him not knowing any sort of language. So it's like there's supposed to be this sort of fish out of water comedy bit to it where he doesn't understand her and she's trying to talk to him. It doesn't work for me. And then she feeds him she tries to, like, she shows him to eat some snails, like it's gross, and he takes the whole thing, throws it in his mouth, he chews it up, and the shell and everything, and she looks at him like, oh my god, what's wrong with you? And it's like, you're eating fucking snails. Like, I don't know, it's supposed to be funny, and it's just not landing. And then he makes some marks on the ground, and they have this it's a weird scene where we see Nori's father. He's doing some work in the village. He's helping them prop up like a tent or I don't know, some sort of shelter. And the music gets sort of tense. And while Craterman is drawing on the dirt with a stick, it's sort of supposed to be like, if I don't know, it's like he's affecting the world around him is what they're trying to tell me anyways. And as he's writing really hard, the stick breaks, and the music is really tense, and it's actually him breaking the stick breaks her father's foot or ankle. I don't know what's going on here. He obviously has some sort of power that he is wielding, and he is affecting the things around him, but it just didn't make any sense to me. I was like, okay, all right. So he breaks a stick and it breaks her dad's foot or leg or whatever. All right, so then we cut back to Screensaver 6, where Gelatrial is swimming. She comes across this makeshift raft with some strangers, and she immediately hides her ears. And then before she gets on, there's one woman on the ship. There's one woman on the raft. I think it's just one. This other person I couldn't tell, but regardless, the woman wants to let him on. The man's like, no, she can't come on here. We don't know who she is, and then as she's getting on, before she gets on the raft, he starts asking her questions, and then the woman that's on the raft argues with him, and then she pulls her onto the raft, and Gelatrial, she drinks some water, they offer some water, and then the man snatches it and says, give us some answers first. And it's really just kind of this pointless back and forth. And then we see this like megalodon worm it's swimming, and they call it a worm. It swims underneath their raft. We get this overhead shot to show us just how big it is. And then one of the men, who is like the younger guy, and he's too pretty to not be a main character. You just tell right away. As soon as I saw him, I'm like, okay, this guy's somebody, because he's just, he's all suave, long hair, got that Fabio look going on. And then as this is happening, they start panicking, and then the woman actually knocks Gelatrial back into the water, and she says something to her, but I couldn't catch it. And then the man, pretty boy, he undoes the rope that's tethering, I guess, two of the rafts together, and Gelatrial is swimming away, and then the man undoes that, and then the worm comes along and kills everyone, just eats the people that are left and eats the raft and takes it down with them. All right, so then Gelatrial is now just sort of treading water, and she looks underneath the water, and we get a shot of the worm again. It looks pretty, but then so the guy, his name Halbrand is his name, we find out. But anyways, so Halbrand is on the little piece of raft that's left, and then she swims to the raft, and it's so weird because she's so annoying. Like, she gives him a dirty ass look, like he's there to save her, and then like she like offers his hand to her, and then she gives him this like smug, dirty ass look, and it's just weird. It's like, he's rescuing you, like, what's your problem? But whatever. So then we cut back to Screensaver 8, and we see that Elrond, he is, they're still in the middle of the challenge, but then he ends up losing, and then he asks the prince to escort him to the door, and then we get to see another pretty shot of Elrond and Prince Durin. They're riding this elevator up to the exit, and it actually, this was probably like the one part of the entire episode that I thought was decent. We find out that Durin and Elrond are old friends, but Elrond has been gone for 20 years. No letters, no messages, no nothing. And Prince Durin's mad at him for missing out on his wedding, missing out on the birth of his children. And he even intimates that, he doesn't intimate, he says it, like, Elrond is an elf, and 20 years for him is like a day. but for a dwarf, it's like, that's a lifetime. And it was kind of I won't say touching, but at least it made sense. Like, I could see why Durin was being kind of a dick to him at first. So then he says, Elrond apologizes to him, and then he says, I'd like to apologize to your family. And this is where it kind of gets a little weird to me, because, sorry, I gotta turn my fan off. It's getting chilly in here. Let me turn this down. So anyways, he says he wants to go meet the family and say that he's sorry to them face to face. And then we cut to Durin's home, and then we meet his wife, Deesa. And it's really weird because he hasn't been around in 20 years, and Elrond doesn't even know who Deesa is, but she greets him like he's an old friend. Like, she knows who he is. She's like, oh my God, it's Elrond, what's up? And she starts going in for the hug and everything. It's just weird. I thought, because, and we fast forward a little bit, I'm jumping ahead, but they have a conversation later on, and he's asking them how they met. Like, how did you two meet? So it didn't add up. It didn't make any sense. But this character Deesa, she's the woman who's playing Deesa. She's an activist. She was, there's many, like, what do you call them? Like the press junkets that these actors and directors do before shows, where they go around and they get interviewed and ask questions or whatever. And this woman, I can't remember her name, and it doesn't matter. She plays Deesa, and she makes, like, the whole thing about her character, it's only about the color of her skin and her gender. That's really her whole talking point for every interview that I've ever seen with her. And it's just sort of a beating. Like, she just beats you over the head with this activism shit. But regardless, the scene with her, like, her acting isn't that bad really, but the scene with her and Durin and Elrond, they're sitting around. She just constantly undermines Durin the whole time. She cuts him off. She answers for him. She's always correcting him. And it just, she's kind of I don't know. They're really setting her up to be like, no, she's in charge. She wears the pants in the relationship. And it's like, literally, Durin cannot say anything without Deesa correcting him and telling him what he's going to do. So, but we learn, that they have 2 kids, and we see the kids and everything. And again, not a terrible scene. It's just Deesa's character is kind of annoying. So, and in fact, like, Durin himself, I think, is okay, but even he is just kind of they set him up as like the dopey husband, so. All right. So then we go back to Screensaver 6 with Gelatrial, and she's so unpleasant. She's so annoying. She has this, like, attitude and hostility towards Halbrand for no real reason. Like, she doesn't even know this guy, and furthermore, he saved her, I mean, saving in the sense that, she didn't have anything to sit on. She's sitting here swimming around, floating in the seas, and, he comes along and helps her after the big worm takes down the other boat, or the other life raft. And she's just beating this guy over the head with her fucking smug ass attitude, and it's just so annoying. She's not a good character. Let's see, what do they talk about? I forgot. There's some stuff I wanted to go over. So that's right. So they get to know each other. They're asking each other. He's asking her questions more, but it just turns into her beating him over the head with how awesome she is. And she starts fucking dick measuring about grief, about she's grieved over more people so he can shut the fuck up. And it was just so annoying, because we find out that his family was killed by orcs, and he's like not telling her that she's, he's not really saying anything bad about her. He's just simply saying, listen, if you're on this, you want to go kill orcs, that's fine. You do your thing, but they've wiped out my whole family, and I'm not telling you, I'm not going to help you. Basically, I don't want anything to do with this. I want to get away from this. And she, like, chastises him, and she's like, and her face, she always purses her lips, and she's like, you don't know how many people I've grieved. You couldn't live 10 lifetimes to know how many people I've grieved. And it's just like, shut the fuck up. And it just doesn't stop with this woman. And her character is she's just insufferable at this point. She really is. She's already turning into that character. I'm like, every time I see her, I'm like, here we go. Let's talk about how awesome she is. All right. So, that's right. So they have their conversation, and then of course she has to like, there's a storm coming, and and she's like, prepare yourself, and she has to like let him know that, oh, something's coming, and I don't know, she's just annoying. All right, so let's get back to Screensaver 5, where we see Bronwyn. She's back at her village. She's trying to warn all the men. The men aren't listening. They're blowing her off, and I don't know. It's just kind of, it's old, the same sort of themes. It's like the women always have to be put in these situations where men are jerks and men don't listen to them. And it's like, it didn't have to be this way. They're just writing it this way. But regardless, that's what's happening. So she's trying to tell them about what she saw, this burned down village and everything. And she's telling them that, we're on a time clock here. They're coming. They're heading this direction. So they blow her off because she doesn't have any proof. And then we see her son. He's back at the house alone. And they made a comment in the first episode about how there's rats underneath the floor, and he hears them scratching, whatever. So we hear the same scratching, or we hear the scratching, and so he starts smacking the floor with like a poker or some piece of whatever, a blunt object, let's say, and breaks the floor. And we see this spooky eye, so we know it's a monster. And then let's see, where'd we go after that? Oh, so there's kind of two things going on at the same time. They kind of cut back and forth. So we see Arender, he's in the hole, and he's tracking down whatever made it. And it's weird because he goes in, and he's essentially, I thought he was hunting whatever it was, but he gets a shot of it. Like we see it way down in the tunnel, like a shadow of it or whatever. And he also sees like a scratch in the wall, or in the wall of the tunnel, and he pulls a long like claw out of it or whatever. But he starts running from this thing, whatever it is, it freaks him out. So he takes off. Well, while that's happening, I'm sorry, actually, no, he is going through the tunnels. He's running from this thing. And then he crawls to this little, the tunnel gets really narrow, so he has to go up and over it. And then on the other side is water. So he goes underneath the water, and he comes up the other side, and then he's standing there with a knife, or he's sitting there with a knife ready to attack whatever comes after him, because we see bubbles, and we think it's coming from there. And then like hands come up from behind him and grab him and yank him into the shadows. And then that's it. That's the last time we see him. And then we go back to Bronwyn. She's at her, she comes into her home. It's all tore up. The place is a mess. And then she's looking for her son. And then he opens the little door. He's hiding in this little cubby hole. And then we this sort of like, it's kind of a tense little moment where we see this. I think it's a goblin is what it is. But regardless, whatever this thing is, it's now in their home. She hides in a closet or a cupboard or whatever. And then they have this really silly fight. Her son and Bronwyn, like, the way they fight this thing, this goblin, it just was really lucky, like it's kind of silly. Like the goblin, she stabs it through with this sword. Like, I don't know where the sword came from, but she has a big old sword and she stabs him with it. And then luckily the sword goes through him, and then he turns around and the hilt or the grip of the sword gets stuck in some stairs, and then he's trapped there, which gives her son some time to wrap a rope around his neck. And then he jumps out of the rafter with holding the rope, and it grabs him by the throat. And then she takes the sword and she cuts his head off, and that's it. And then we cut to her slamming the head down at the village, whatever, the leader of the village. She slams it down in front of him. And then she's like, we need to move. And then that's it. So it really wasn't, I don't know. It just wasn't, it didn't land with me. Nothing's really landing with me, because everything, even like the fight with the goblin, it was just sort of cheesy. It started off kind of tense, and then it was just like pure luck that they even survived. So regardless. All right, let's go back to let's see. I forgot where I was. Oh, so then we get a quick scene of Gelatrial and Halbrand. She gets knocked from the raft during this storm, and there's some rope. There's rope tied to a piece of the raft. It's like log. and she's hanging on to it, and then the log gets struck by lightning, so it goes over, and then it pulls her down. So then we see Holbren, he dives in after her, and you know, he's human, but when he catches up to her, she's a good 100 feet beneath the surface, like, because she's just been like going down. We see the rope like unraveling or unspooling from the raft, so she's sinking really quick. But so anyways, he dives really deep down, and then he sees that she has her brother's dagger tucked into her side, so he pulls it, and then he brings her and saves her back and gets her back on the raft. I was actually really surprised with this scene. I was really shocked that they actually had her be saved by somebody. Because she does the saving. So I was surprised. Good for Amazon. They actually did something, I don't know, a little more conventional, where it's like the heroine doesn't always have to just save everything and not be saved. It's okay. And then I guess I'll give them a little bit of points for that. All right. So then let's see, where are we? Okay. So then we go back to Screensaver 3, and then we see Craterman is talking to Nori and Poppy, and they're holding some lanterns, and I guess the lanterns, they're fireflies that they've captured, and they're using them as lanterns. And then he takes the fireflies from the lantern, and he controls them, and then they go up into the sky. And it's so funny because, the fireflies go in the sky, and they I guess not really in the sky. They just go up above them, and they sort of map out like a constellation. And then Nori says, I don't know, I've never seen those stars before, but I know where to find them, or I know who can find them. And it was kind of an okay scene. Wasn't terrible. And then we cut from that. Oh, and she says, we know how to help you. And then we're back on Screensaver 8. We see Prince Durin now is talking with King Durin, his father. He's talking about Elrond and the proposal. And then they talk about something that they have that they wonder if he knows that they have it. They open this little box. We can't see what's inside, and then it cuts. So they have something that's special. That's going to pay off, I'm sure, later on. So then we're on to Screensaver 5 again with Bronwyn's son. They're heading out, and then he picks up the it looks like the hilt of a sword. That's what it looks like to me. But he holds it in his hands, and it's like the evil MacGuffin. We see the symbol flash, and then he has a cut on his wrist, and there's some like blood that's like the hilt is pulling the blood towards it, and then when the blood touches it, some shit flashes on the screen. That's really it. And then his mom calls him, and then that's it. He just throws the hilt in his little backpack, and then they bounce. And then it finally ends on Screensaver 6 with Gelatrial and Holbrand. They are on the raft, or what's left of it, and they're floating. And then we see a ship, and we see someone standing on a ship, but the light's behind this person, and we can't tell who it is. So mysterious, I guess. And that's it. Roll credits. So not the greatest episode, really. This show started off on a really low. So if any sort of improvements they'd have to be really dramatic for the show to get good. So right now, I don't think the show's that good. I mean, it's moving forward. It's a better episode than the last one, but the last one was trash, in my opinion. So this one's better than trash. That's about as best as I can give it. But that's it. It's not really, it's not really a show that I'm waiting to see some payoffs. I'm waiting to see some things happen. I'm 2 episodes behind, so we'll see. Maybe it gets better. But that's it. That's really the end of the episode. The one thing that I'll say is the characters are just not believable. They're really overacting, in my opinion, and Gelatrial is really annoying, and she's just smug and annoying. I just don't like her. Nori is okay. Poppy's okay. Elrond's okay. He's pretty decent. Like I said, him and Prince Durin's conversation about why Prince Durin is mad at him, it made sense. I liked it. It added some depth to their relationship. So not terrible. But yeah, outside of that, it was just another episode. So But anyways, if you're liking the show, hope you continue to watch it. If you like this video, you think it was worth your time, give it a thumbs up. You think someone else might like it, share it with a friend. Click the subscribe button. Other than that, I will let you go. You have a great week. I'll talk to you later. Bye.